Okay, we're passing around Sacred Mountain. I really have to record this, but I want to make sure that this is recording. Yeah, sorry, I'm just testing. It's not capturing the volume. Microphone. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right, everybody has Sacred Mountain. This was, well, I'll talk about it later. So go ahead and inhale. We're going to close our eyes. Have your feet touching the ground and spine nice and straight. So this attunement is going to move from mass consciousness to source consciousness. So every time we come together, we're just going to let everything from the outside world stay outside. Mass consciousness is anything that feels like heavy, that is of the world, that really doesn't belong to you right now. So inhale, and you locate where that feeling is within you. And as you exhale, you just very gently let it go. Inhale again, this idea of mass consciousness, all that is going on in the world that does not belong in this space, that in this moment is not here. Just leave it outside the room. Exhale, let it go. Inhale one more time. Just sensing where that is within your body. And then you let it go. So now maybe sitting a little taller, inhaling really deeply, coming into this connection with your source consciousness. And I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, just put your hand at your solar plexus. We're going to connect to that source within you. Feel that strength, feel that peace. And when you exhale, you also let this go. You don't attach to it, neither good nor bad. We're teaching our nervous system how to move between emotions, and we have a choice. So inhale again, connecting to this source consciousness within you, this inner strength, inner peace. Allow it to permeate all over your body. Exhale, let it go. One more time. Inhaling, just sensing and recognizing, remembering that you have the strength within you. Call it forth. Exhale, let it go. So inhale again with this strength within you. Say to yourself, I am conscious. I am conscious. Just being aware of your peace. I am conscious. I am conscious, so I move away from attaching to mass consciousness into connecting with my source consciousness. So just inhale the oil until you feel settled within you with this strength. Take your time to come back to the present moment, feeling our attunement to each other, to our hearts, And when you open your eyes, just allow it to have this gentle gaze. So come on back, and I have to just make sure that this is on. Oh dear. Is it not showing? Okay. I mean, in the end, it really doesn't matter, but does anybody have Michelle Lau's WhatsApp? Okay, great. So, um, escape. Okay, perfect. All right, welcome. So let me start off by telling you who I am. Actually, shall we shut the door? Are we expecting anyone else? Anyone else have friends coming? Okay. Go ahead and shut it. Yep, it's shutting here. Okay. So most of you know who I am. Some of you are meeting for the first time. Very briefly, my name is Li Yan, and I have been really cultivating my connection to who I am for maybe the last 20 years. Before that, you could say that I was only just going through the motions and not really being very aware of what was happening inside me. And I can credit my coming into my being very much to my plant friends, my essential oil friends. And I say that because I really started using essential oils for my physical problems, as many of you can understand, because our physical problems are really what our body is trying to talk to us, right? So we respond by not wanting to feel pain, not wanting to look ugly, not wanting to, all of it. So that was, um, 10 years ago, I started using Young Living essential oils. But before that, I was exploring a lot of natural remedies. And I can say that within the last 10 years, a huge quantum shift has happened within me. And I really believe it's because the plant molecules are intelligent and alive and working within me to sort of, hey, like, wake up, you have a purpose in life. And so I'm excited to talk to you about that today, because connecting it to the gene keys has also been something that really propelled me, because now I had a kind of a map for who I am. And so I'm going to share a lot of little quotes today in the presentation, because a lot of people have said it better than I have. And this is Ramana Maharshi from India, and he was a sage that meditated in the caves in Arunachala, this mountain. So he says, the question, who am I, is not really meant to get an answer. The question, who am I, is meant to dissolve the questioner. And so in many, many different traditions of really connecting within, we have been really asking this question. And in asking that question, there have been a few different paths that have come through for humanity. You have the ones that really meditate to ask who they are, but they go and hide in the caves, right? They're not able to integrate into society. And then you have those that ask the question, but from the wrong place. They ask it from their mind. And then they start doing things in the world that doesn't serve anyone. I mean, we all see that. And that's really what's been happening in the world, is we are wanting to make a name for ourselves, you know, in asking this question, who am I, wanting to make a name, and so making choices that boost the ego. And that has to do a lot with money and, you know, power. But I want to propose a contemplative path, a path that actually brings you back into the world and doing and being exactly who you're meant to be, yet in that space, having guidance and creative inspiration to truly serve the people that show up on your path. Does that sound exciting? I think a lot of you are already on that path, right? Hands up. Come on. That's the other issue. So the ones who like no ego, right? It's like we have to celebrate ourselves too. So there's a middle way, right? Okay. I promise I won't spend so much time on each slide. So I think a lot of what we talk about can be used in the analogy of music, because everybody understands music and understands that it is of a feeling that is invoked by beautiful music that is in tune, and yet it's also sometimes indescribable, that feeling. But we inherently know when it's out of tune, right? So what I like to say is that my deepest knowing is that the song of spirit lives in the essence of plants. And what I mean by this is that each bottle of essential oil that comes from the plants that is of therapeutic and medicinal quality, like Young Living, has a frequency and a song. So many of you know the book by, oh, I'm blanking on it right now, Chemistry of Essential Oils, right? Dr. What's his name? David Stewart, thank you. Dr. David Stewart is an amazing book. And he describes how as the essential oils enter our cells, it is singing a song. And the organs that have the same frequency, because we know that our body is, and we're electric beings, and we're singing different frequencies within us. So it is attracted to that certain place that is singing that song, and that's when they match. And of course, we also know the essential oils have the molecules that unlock the cells so it can enter and affect change. So how does that work for emotional wisdom? I won't go too deep into the science today, but suffice to say, our olfactory system is the only one that goes right into our limbic system of the brain, which houses the amygdala and the other places that store and processes our emotions and our trauma. And we feel that and know that, again, intuitively, because when we smell something that is familiar, we immediately say, oh, that reminds me of my grandma's house or my high school, whatever it is that imprinted that memory within you. So we partner with our friends that are the essential oils from the plants to, again, come into this place of understanding why we are feeling the way we're feeling and learning from it. When we learn from it, we are actually able to, in a way, repattern the way we react to what happens in our lives. So this book, Carolyn L. Mine, DC, wrote this 26 years ago now, Releasing Emotional Patterns with Essential Oils. It's an amazing reference book, and we will go through that today. But she was inspired by Gary Young, who was the founder of Young Living, his visit to Egypt. And there's a whole story behind it that you can go look up. But essentially, he was secretly ushered into a room in the Isis temple in Egypt. And he saw on the wall the hieroglyphics and depiction of an ancient Egyptian ceremony that was the ritual of cleansing flesh and blood, which he, in his connection to source, transcribed as a ritual used to clear emotions. Now, when he took that back to the professor at the university in Egypt, it was confirmed. So, what I most love to do in all of my work is to assist my clients to come into soul coherence. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, coherence is a way that is, again, if we use the music as an example, is harmonious, right? When a symphony is together and they're not in coherence, they're not in the rhythm, they start to sound like noise, discord. So it feels like peace, joy, and harmony, a space within that facilitates our transformation. So I'll read you what Richard Rudd, that should say Richard Rudd, says here about how to get to soul coherence. And it is this contemplative path. So the ultimate goal of contemplation is to bring both our inner and outer lives into balance. Then we can be inwardly fulfilled and outwardly content. Contemplation achieves this aim through teaching us how to cultivate a sense of presence. We will learn that the true purpose of life is not something we're here to do, rather it is something we're here to be. So this idea of inner and outer lives in balance is worth contemplating. And you can catch yourself when you are more aware of what this means for you. So you may say something if someone is in distress as an advice to them. And then when that happens to you, you do something different. So it's sort of akin to, do you kind of practice what you preach, right? So one of the examples I like to give, and it's again worth contemplating, so many of us are facing emotional problems, physical problems. Let me just ask you this question. Who in this room really would love to see peace in the world? Great. And I think that's a human desire that is very, everyone has it. And then I'm going to ask you, if you were plagued by anger, for instance, or pain, some kind of pain, or if you were diagnosed with something, how often do we use warlike language to address it? How often have you seen advertisements that say, we're going to fight your disease, we're going to kill the cells, we're going to, whatever it is, right? So sense into the reality of how we as a human species really cannot get to peace until we are at peace with whatever shows up for us. Do you agree? Yeah. And this idea of healing ultimately is about coming into harmony versus squashing something. Squash the bug. Actually, yeah, I got bed bugs right now in my mom's house. Again, I see it coming in my own life, right? How do we actually live in harmony? Now, then it's that reality. Nature, we are part of nature. And nature has this, there's no morals in nature. There's only survival. And so ultimately it's about self-forgiveness, because we are part animal, part human, right? But we have a heart that is going to guide us. And so moving too much one way is also going to cause you issues. So yeah, all food for thought. Okay, so this idea of inner alchemy. So does everyone know what the term alchemy means? So alchemy, you can think of it as also sharing the same root word as chemistry, right? And it is about transforming one substance into another. And in ancient olden days, they talk about transforming lead into gold. And some people took it like literally. So they will be in their labs trying to transform the lead into gold and poisoning themselves in the meantime. But the ones who understood it as a metaphor knew that the alchemy happened within. So inner alchemy is about taking the thing that is painful, is sort of not what we will want to stay in for too long, but as an ingredient to the recipe, and it changes into something beautiful, something that is resonant, that sounds good, that's musical, right? Okay, so Dr. Caroline Mine in her book says essential oils can raise the body's frequency, and therapeutic grade or medicinal quality oils are able to do this because they vibrate at a high frequency and transfer that frequency to the body. So if you think about alchemy as shifting the vibratory rate of a certain substance, then you can see that essential oils is our friend in this case, right? And just a side note to say that essential oils have been tested for their frequency, and that frequency is really high. And some have even gone so far as to say that as a natural occurring substance, it is the highest we've ever come across. And rose is the one that has been tested above 350 megahertz. And there's also the spruce, the black spruce, and the blue spruce that intuitively we know vibrate really high as well. And so I wanted to give you a few examples of the essential oils that we can use to work on our emotions. I won't go through all of them. I did go through Sacred Mountain with mass consciousness, and you understand the protocol that we go through with that. So we will pick a few and work on it. But in this case, I introduced White Angelica as the essential oil blend that can take us from shifting consciousness to taking personal responsibility. So I just want to talk a little bit about what that means. Okay, so as we see here, you know, shifting consciousness is like vibrating higher. And yet there is something in the spiritual world today about wanting to transcend this physical body, this physical existence. And the rhetoric is very much about we need to vibrate higher so we don't, you know, sort of like we can leave this place, we can go to somewhere better. And that is why this is moved, because if I say we're moving from consciousness shifting to taking personal responsibility, you're like, wait, but why is consciousness shifting not good? There are various ways to look at that. It's sort of, we get stuck in this idea of we need to shift our consciousness, but we forget that it's about taking personal responsibility. When we take personal responsibility for everything that happens around us, we then are aware of our ability to choose our response. So it's not about, oh, you're telling me that I caused everything around me, I don't deserve this. You know, that's a very common response. And the truth is, there's some mysteries we'll never be able to pinpoint exact cause and effect. However, if it's in front of you, you have a personal responsibility to respond in the way that you are best equipped with in that moment. So that's also another self-forgiveness ability when you say, oh, I wish I knew this when I was raising my child. Oh my gosh, I've ruined his life. And then there's a certain self-forgiveness there for we are all responding at the best we can given our ability at that point in time. So when we know better, we do better, right? So that's also another place of letting go of the past. Okay. Any questions so far? I'm just like yakking at you. Does this, is this something that you all are already embodying, working on, or something new? Anything that catches your attention?
That I'm very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And I also feel like I'm meant to be here because I'm going through exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Ironically,
Yeah.
this morning I used white injector.
You
I
did,
know,
yes.
It was, I think that the oil that I see most attracted to,
Mm-hmm.
that's the oil I got from Sue.
Yes, white angelica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yes.
why, but I got attracted to that. I think that's the vibration.
Yes. Yes. So white angelica has been blended for really creating a positive aura around us. And in this modality, we use it for a lot of emotions that are very relevant to what's happening in the world today. And I'll get more into it later. What I want to say about that, you know, she used the word ironically. But side note, I am currently in my second year of a PhD program in depth psychology. So depth, deep, is a branch of psychology mostly influenced by Carl Jung. Carl Jung created the word synchronicity. And he actually really created it because of his studies of the I Ching. I Ching is what the Gene Keys is inspired by, and is a 5,000-year-old ancient Chinese sacred text. And it was a way of divination where they would throw yarrow sticks and give their prophecies. But what inspired Carl Jung to use the word synchronicity was because he was seeing that it was very much aligned when you do a reading. And so synchronicity is the word for when things happen. You know, a lot of times you say, oh, I don't know why I chose it, or I don't know why I was there, but it happened, right? It's because there is this certain guidance within you that, and the more you sort of tune into that radio station, right, this increasing the vibration, the more you start seeing synchronicities in your life. And I take that as what I call signposts. Like you're on your path, you see a signpost, and you're like, ah, I'm on the right path, right? So open your eyes to that and give yourself a little like hooray when that happens, because it starts to welcome it more. You know what they say, you where your energy goes, you start to see more of that. You start to really, that's kind of a form of manifesting, but sometimes it's like it was already there, we just never saw it. Yeah. Okay. So the whole idea of the gene keys is to move from being in the victimhood consciousness to freedom. And that is also what the blue book is about. It's about having the freedom to choose how you want to be, and knowing that it is in our subconscious and our unconscious that makes, upwards of 90% of our decisions. And before we can even think, we've already reacted. And so with the essential oils, it helps us to be reminded and to not go below a certain frequency if we really start, partnering with it, right? So this is what Richard Rudd says about freedom. Freedom, true freedom, has nothing to do with how we spend our time on the material plane. True freedom is not an effect. It is a kind of ever-expanding spaciousness that arises spontaneously inside you as you come to understand how deeply victimized you really are by your own core beliefs. So in Young Living and with our oils, we have a lot of blends, right, to help us come to this self-belief. Believe is an essential oil blend to change our thoughts about ourselves, because we understand that our thoughts really create our attitude towards life. And not just that, it manifests what we are complaining about. So, just to give you this idea of how we move from victimhood to freedom in the Gene Keys protocol, we talk about moving from the three very simple frequencies: the lower frequency, the shadow frequency, the gift frequency, and the Siddhic frequency. Siddhic, from Siddhi, is a Sanskrit word that means, sometimes it means supernatural powers, but it's really the highest expression, highest potential. We know about the highest potential. Siddhi. So it's Sanskrit. Yeah. And he is a very well-read teacher and a poet, which is why I love the Gene Keys. So it's all about the nuances of the words. But he couldn't find an English word that could really give us that idea of what this highest potential, So think of the shadow as the seed. So remember what I said, the inner alchemy is an ingredient. The shadow is the seed. The gift is the flower. So you need the seed to flower. And the Siddhi is the fruit, from the flower to the fruit. But guess what? The fruit has the seed in it. Okay? So we're not killing anything here. We're transforming and transmuting. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. So let me talk a little bit more about the art of contemplation. This is the foundation of the Gene Keys method. This art of contemplation is truly about taking pauses, and it's a pause, it doesn't have to be a pause in doing, but it's definitely a pause in your awareness. So if you're taking time to pause and think about your life and contemplate having tea, that's all great. But if you complain and say, I don't have time to do that, then it's really not about pausing your work life. It's about pausing your incessant thinking. Yeah. And once you pause enough and you're contemplating something, and so sometimes people say, well, what am I pausing to think about, right? So that's why in the beginning when I said, who am I? That's a very common, like, okay, think about this. Who am I? Just pause and think about that, right? But I love the Gene Keys because it's so creative. We have our own map. We have our own shadows to contemplate, and even the gifts, right? In fact, we don't spend too much time on the shadows. A lot of us have been really working on ourselves for so long, and actually, with the gene keys, some of it is a confirmation that that's why 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I had these experiences, and now I see myself in the gift in some of the spheres, right? Anybody had that little aha moment? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then, whatever it is you want to contemplate, you do that, you give yourself time, and then there's a pivot. This pivot is truly a breakthrough. And it allows you to course correct. And it's very subtle because it's not really about, now I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to quit my job, and I'm going to move to another country. You ready to do that? Yeah. But sometimes when we try to escape, that is really telling when the same problems crop up again in another place. So the idea is that it's an internal breakthrough, internal pivot. And ultimately, it's merge. And merge really means this idea of it becomes so much a part of you that it is now embodied. It is not a very distinct idea that you have to use so much energy to try to do. So, for instance, if it's something to do with anger with somebody, a relationship, when you truly take the time to pause, pivot, and merge, you may find yourself not reacting to the trigger. When they say something, you in the past you used to like immediately, they push the button, right? Yeah. So now they push the button, and you're like, so it's a very subtle yet, I guess, unconscious. So we're working with the unconscious here, and in many different ways to put it, we're working with the yin part of ourselves, because the yang part is overactive, overthinking, overdoing. And we come back into this womb of creation, we start to be able to have that patience and gentleness within us. So Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So he was a survivor of the Holocaust and became a very prolific philosopher and writer. So a lot of times when we talk about between the stimulus and response as a space, what is the immediate thing that comes to your mind when, or what do you do when I say pause? Say again? Breathe. Exactly. So we're so innately connected to our breath. And breath is an amazing way to reconnect with our inner source. And lo and behold, breath is what we use to, again, amplify the effects of the essential oil molecules, right? So I'll go into that a little more, but that's the ultimate, like, simplicity is breath. Okay, so as I spoke about Carl Jung, he also talked about the path of individuation. That's also his word. So individuation is this idea of growing into ourselves. And we may or may not get there in one lifetime. Yet every layer that we shed, every layer that we heal is an important progress. So Richard Rudd says the difference between an individuated human being and a conditioned human being is that the former lives in a state of self-forgiveness. Who finds it hard to forgive ourselves? Have you ever considered that we are our biggest critics? Yeah. So I think this one is important. So shall we go through it? I have 2 bottles of forgiveness here. And pass it around. Okay, I'm gonna give it to you. Here, you take it. Okay, while we're waiting for that, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit of how to find this in the book. Most of you know it, but this is moving from unforgiveness to forgiveness. So we have a chart here for all the emotions, and it's alphabetical. So unforgiveness would be under U, and so I find it, unforgiveness, and it moves to forgiveness. And the way out is I bless. And the oil is forgiveness. And the point is blood pressure. Okay, so we're gonna put this on the blood pressure point, and that is on your, kind of on your middle of your biceps here. And so Carolyn talked about the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual quadrants. This protocol addresses all 4. Physical, to repattern the cellular memory, is on our alarm points. These are acupuncture alarm points. Spiritual is the way out, I bless, and that is a contemplative statement. What does that mean for you? And then there's mental insight about, oh, I want to work on this unforgiveness, self-forgiveness. And then physical, mental, emotional, of course, is moving from forgiveness to unforgiveness. Okay, let's do it. Unforgiveness. So circle it around 3 times clockwise. Put it on your, right there, your bicep area. And we can put it in the crown of our head, the back of our head. On our forehead is our emotion points, and the back of the neck is our release and filter. And then go ahead and inhale. We're now locating this unforgiveness within us, and we're focusing right now on the inability to forgive ourselves, this unforgiveness of ourselves. Where does it live? Call it out. Breathe into it. And exhale, let it go. Inhale again. Staying in that unforgiveness for self, acknowledging the pain that brings up. It may even bring up any incident that you remember. And then you exhale, you let it go. We don't attach to it. We don't hold on to it. So one more time, inhaling, unforgiveness. Allowing yourself to completely feel it. And exhale, let it go. Inhaling now, teaching our body to move to the other side, which is forgiveness. Inhaling deeply. What does forgiveness mean for you? How does that feel within you when you forgive yourself? When you exhale, you let it go. Coming back into this neutral space. Inhale, forgiveness. Be generous with yourselves. Give yourself this forgiveness. Notice how that feels. Exhale, let it go. One more time. Inhaling. forgiveness, it's an act of giving to yourself. Receive it and exhale, let it go. So staying in this place of forgiveness, self-forgiveness, say to yourself, I bless. And just pause, allow whatever thoughts to come up. I bless. What does that mean when you can bless whatever situation it was, whoever you're forgiving, which in this case is yourself? I bless. I bless so I can move and transmute unforgiveness for myself into forgiveness. So allow yourself as much time as you need here to breathe into that, to anchor in. I bless. So I would love to hear from anyone who has anything to share with that. If you felt anything within. And sometimes when you do have these inner alchemical moments, it's okay to keep it to yourself. And it's a great way to also journal after about what came up for you. And with every emotion, we can have a few types of responses. We can repress it, we can overreact to it, or we can respond from a place of centeredness. And so when we tell ourselves to forgive ourselves and we say, I bless, there may be a voice inside that, tries to repress that, or gives you some excuses, or tells you you can't, or tells you it's not fair. Whatever that is, explore it. So contemplation is not about, one and done. It's really about seeing where that thread takes you. Oh, why am I responding this way? Why is that voice telling me I'm not ready to forgive? Or why is that voice telling me I don't deserve it? So there's a deeper exploration. And that's the beauty of this book. You can use it with so much creativity. You are going to then go to another emotion and work on that, and then see what comes up that over there, and know that it's not about finding an end point, because life goes on regardless. Yeah.
No, because I was just in the therapy, so I'm more relaxed.
More relaxed.
Yeah, because every time I do
Mm.
meditation,
Mm-hmm.
my alpha mode. So
I saw you yawn.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yawning is a
always
great
a
release. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
In,
in fact, when we yawn, try to go into the deepest yawn ever. And when you do, that gets you to a theta state. And the theta state is healing.
Yeah, I am controlling myself.
Yeah.
Like maximum yawning.
Yes. Yeah, maximum yawning. Anybody else want to share? Okay. All right. So let's move on. So this path of individuation, that's really our path. Has anybody heard of individuation before this? No. Okay. So we give it many different names, right? This is like self help, self growth, growing to our highest potential, right? But individuation has a specific connotation that it is within, to individuate. We're individuals. But it doesn't mean that we separate from others. It really means that if something in the outside world is bothering us, then look within. It's not them, it's a reflection of what our inner world is wanting us to see. Yeah. Okay. Explain on that part? Okay. This idea of projection. So, I mean, very simply, if you're irritated at something, so let's say someone is always triggering you by being messy, and you feel this really strong blame, like, why are you so messy? You're messing my life up. I need you to clean up so I can be peaceful. So that's a simple example. And so we try to get somebody else to do something to make us feel better. And we are adamant that the only reason I'm upset is because you are messy. But in this case, the path of individuation asks you to inquire within, why is this mess bothering you? Could it be that there is an inner call to clean up something inside? And to take that energy that is now being projected outwards in, to transmute it, an inner alchemy that becomes a creative expression. So ultimately, it could change the relationship based on your own response. It could be many different things, but one example could be the person that you're yelling at would actually learn from you if you modeled it and start to pick things up. But there's this hesitance in us always to, like, why do I have to do everything, right? But you can also tell that a lot of children learn by, I'm just thinking as a child, learn by modeling, but also would happily do it with you, because then it becomes a game. So there are infinite number of reasons why that would bother you, but that's one example. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. Please put it closer to your mouth.
Okay. Okay, the word individual also means me. I come to know about it from that word. And but presently, to my simple understanding, this state of individuation is sort of intermediate level to our stage of evolution to the highest state of, let's say, self-realization, or is it on nirvana or whatever the highest state. So this individuation is a state of intermediate level. Yeah. In general, all of us want health, want wealth, yeah. We want love, relationship. We want to have some mystical experience, spiritual kind of experience, and we want to be able to create our new life. So these are the five, and that's the intermediate goal everyone is aspiring for. But in reality, most people living in tend to be all focused on one area, especially on wealth. So they climb up corporate ladder, they create a lot of business, they're very wealthy. Materially, they are very abundant. Yeah. But then, in terms of relationship, in terms of health, they may be children. Yeah. In terms of spiritual maturity, it's not much advanced there. So that is not a complete, not an integrated kind of harmony. Yeah. So if we can reach a state of integration means we can achieve all these five intermediate goals and with harmony in our internal state. We are in a vibrant and healthy and expanding state. Yeah. So that the level of integration that this type of work aspiring for the highest state of self-realization or enlightenment, well, we are still at the 3D level and still struggling with stress issue, health issue, and financial independence issue. So become like it's a big, big gap to our present state. So integration is sort of intermediate level, and we should focus on. Once you have achieved the state of integration, then we go all the way as high as we can. Yeah, there's no limit.
Thank you. Yeah, one step at a time. Okay, so now I'm really going to go into the gene keys. Yeah, and if somebody has their gene key here, we can talk about it. Does anybody need a short break? Bathroom break, anybody? Okay, so essentially, we have the idea is that we all have genius within us. So Michael Meade is a depth psychologist, and he talks about the basic meaning of genius. The basic meaning of genius is the spirit that is already there. The second oldest meaning is that which is just born. So when each of us is born, we're born with a spirit that's already there, that was in us before we came. So we can think about it as light. Light is a really good metaphor for this idea of genius within us, but it's also very literal. So when we confirm with science, you know what a lot of the sages already were talking about, it's pretty incredible, and they have seen that when the sperm enters the egg, there is an what they call a zinc flash. So the chemical zinc flashes into a bright light. And so that's the moment of conception. And they have also seen within our DNA this idea of light, DNA emitting light, and very low levels of light at all times. Revealing our genius, so it's already within us. Revealing our genius is about changing the frequency of the light that enters our DNA. And we've been talking about frequency, and a lot of it has to do with our emotions and our thoughts. And the first step in that is our activation sequence, which gives us this core stability. So again, we talked about this whole idea of moving from victim consciousness to connecting with your inner strength. And that is the core stability. If you look at your profile, the first 4 outer spheres, your life's work, your evolution, your radiance, and your purpose, makes up the outside, sort of like a diamond. So that's what we call the core stability. And that first reveals your inner work. So I'm going to focus on the life's work sphere just for illustration, because this is truly a lifetime of contemplation. You have a map, you start to really allow yourself to see where you're at. So the life's work, when we talk about work, immediately there's this thinking about, oh, what work should I do? Yeah, vocation, right? So it's not quite your vocation, it's more inner work. We talk about this idea of allow, accept, and embrace. We allow our shadows to be a part of us because we are going to accept it as part of that inner alchemy to allow for the gift to flower. And we embrace it, and it becomes part of us, but it is because it is helping us to be in the state of the gift frequency. And the civic frequency comes as flashes of insight, flashes of our peak moments. And in this time of great change, humans are starting to really be able to glimpse acidic frequencies more and more often. And even in some of our children that are coming in, they are more able to access that. Ultimately, it's a sense of intuition. It's a sense of inspiration to something bigger than ourselves that is guiding us. And we can use the word psychic if we want, but it's ultimately that ability to be and live in a realm that miracles occur. Miracles, synchronicities, magic, it becomes more of a daily life occurrence. So I can talk about anyone's life's work. If you want to just shout out your, give me the number that you see and the shadow, okay, sorry, Muna, the shadow, gift, and city. Where's your chart? Okay. Okay, so Muna's life's work is 9.3. Moving from inertia to determination to invincibility. And she's a changer for line 3. So okay, Muna,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. So have you either now or in the past felt like you were in a state of inertia, like things are not moving as fast as you would like, and you're wondering, you know, what's next?